So what's up, people, and welcome to another Alita Battle Angel video. Kind of. This is another impromptu rambling sort of videos, as if I don't ramble on any of my other videos. And I'm making this because I started thinking about something, which is always a dangerous thing for me, but I figured I would go ahead anyway. So this is with regards to all this discussion that has been coming up with regards to the possibilities of a prequel series, a Alita prequel series that may come out in Disney+. And it has been discussed by many YouTube videos as well as articles that have already come out. As an example, I'll show the one on WhatsOnDisney Plus website, which I'll leave a link to. I have no idea if this is a good article or not, or if that's a good website. I just found this searching for it, and so I will leave a link. But in any case, yeah, there's all this discussion going on with regards to a prequel. And this video isn't about whether there's a possibility or what is the probabilities for which the sequel will come out, who has mentioned it to determine whether this is true or not, or what studios should be doing, or what they seem to be doing with regards to this prequel. There has already been discussions done on that by people who are much more expert than me in these types of subjects. They include the channels such as #ElitaArmy, where the Radio Chaos discussions have gone into this. Gen X Strikes Back had one. I presume there are others, such as potentially Doc Ito or Star of Elion. They usually are very up-to-date with regards to these things, and I leave all of that to those experts. Today, I just wanted to think about it and go, well, if there is going to be a prequel series, what do I want on this? And this is actually more a question. What do you want on this? And the question shouldn't just be, at least from my perspective anyway, it shouldn't just be what do we want on this, but what do we feel would actually make the Alita franchise stronger? So we can't just say, well, we want a tremendous amount of blood and gore, and if nobody else likes it, well, screw them. I will be the only one I care about, which to some case may be the case, but it doesn't really benefit the entire franchise if you want a, sequel coming out after the first movie. That's not the way to go. And so the question that I wanted to bring out is, what do you feel will be a proper sequel that can satisfy your needs at the same time as satisfying the needs of what you feel an average Alita audience is? And that's not the people in the #ElitaArmy. Those are the people who are major fans. What I'm talking about are the casual moviegoers who went there and, kind of liked Alita. Okay? And what do they want to know, right? And so I was thinking about this, and whether Disney makes it, Disney doesn't make it, that's irrelevant for me. So long as whoever makes it makes a good quality series. So if Disney can do it, more strength to them. If Disney can't do it without screwing things up, they shouldn't even try, right? That's my feeling, although a lot of, I would say, businessmen might think otherwise in these studios. But in any case, so what is a quality series? And as far as topic is concerned, I'll talk about this a little bit later. It can be a lot of different potential topics. But the two things that I would like to see are the series doesn't insult the original source material, that the basic look and feel and the basic overall plot of whatever prequel series comes out is faithful to the source material. And second, it doesn't insult the cinematic universe. We know that there is a new universe being built for the cinema series, which is different from what we see in the source material. So far, Robert Rodriquez has done it really well in the sense that the overall essence of the Alita Battle Angel movie is very much faithful to the source material, with differences in certain areas, such as the certain characters in the movie and potential plots right? One thing we know, Daisuke Ito is married, Daisuke Ito is not, right? That by itself creates certain differences between the cinematic universe and the comic verse. But I feel, at least from my perspective, that the basic essence of Dr. Ito has remained the same whether you take it from the cinematic universe or the comic verse. And so if they could do that while keeping the very essence of what we value as a GUNNM franchise, while still keeping it without any conflicts to what has already been shown in the cinematic universe. I don't expect that to try to become completely faithful, they suddenly make Daisuke Ito not married again, and Shiren never existed in the first place. That will just create a whole mess between the prequel and the cinematic universe. So whatever prequel is made, I would assume that it is made to match the cinematic universe, because the majority of the people out there who know Battle Angel Alita or Alita Battle Angel is basing it on the cinematic universe. So with that said, what are the various possible sources that you could do for a prequel series? Well, you could do various things, right? One possibility is to follow Alita, which means that it goes back to what was happening in the war that resulted in her ending up in the junkyard. Another possibility is Iron City. What was going on in Iron City prior to Daisuke Ito discovering Alita in the junkyard? Another one could go very back to the origin story. What happened in the origin of Alita from her birth to the point where she became expert Panzerkunst practitioner and an berserker. And the final possibility, I would say, is the history of Earth. What created the fall? What created the scientific technological civilization that eventually spread out into the various planets, including Mars, and then created the chaos that eventually resulted in the fall? Any of those can be done. But my feeling is it should be done in a way that, one, doesn't ruin the viewer's experience of the entire lore. Some things should be left untouched until the proper timing of the story. And some other things may be okay to tell because it's distant enough that it doesn't affect the cinematic universe. You don't get spoiled to what you might see in the sequel, for example, by seeing the prequel. But at the same time, it still gives you more of the world building. And the point with regards to the cinematic universe is, since there is only one movie that most of the people have seen, and the possibilities of two novels, the Iron City novel and the main movie novel, that's the only thing that we see as the cinematic universe. There still needs to be a tremendous amount of world building. So what do you want to build the world with? And so from my perspective, I know a lot of people have said they would like to see what's going on in Mars. And my feeling is it's a little bit too early because of the fact that they're barely building anything on what's going on Earth. We just finally know a little bit about Iron City. We have known nothing about Zalem. And beyond a few characters that have come out on Earth, we don't know anything else. So then why start building Mars already? It's nice. And for a lot of people who have read the comics, such as myself, I am very curious what is going on in Mars. But from my perspective, I feel that you may potentially distance the entire story away from the GUNNM series because of the fact that you're focusing too much on Mars, and by the time the series is done, the people will feel that Alita Battle Angel cinematic universe is more about Mars than about Earth, right? Because you have one movie versus an entire series of what's going on. I would say do whatever is necessary to build Earth. So if it is about Mars right prior to what happens going into the battle, that might be okay. But I even have a difficulty with that. The first movie deliberately, as you know, left it as a question mark. How did Alita end up in the junkyard? It would be nice if that is actually revealed in the movie series rather than a whole separate prequel. Why is that? For one thing, not everybody is going to be having access to Disney Plus, which means that for some people, they won't be able to learn how she got to the junkyard unless you pay, right? You pay to play, so to speak. And I'm sick and tired of pay to play sort of thing. But they don't have to do that, right? They could write about many things. One of the possibilities is to take the Iron City novel and to make a prequel series. So the prequel series, since it's pre-Alita, one possibility could be is it's not about Alita. It's about Dysonito, it's about Sharon, it's about Hugo, it's about Vector, it's about all of those people prior to what happens in the movie. And I'm okay with that. I would be very much interested in learning about what happened to Iron City. Other people may not, because of the fact that they feel Alita has been so centralized as a figure in the first movie. They would feel that it's too early to centralize on another character. And I agree to some extent with that. It's just that I feel, from my perspective again, learning about the cinematic universe Iron City might be interesting. Now, for that, they won't be able to go too much into the comic verse because, of course, as we know, one of the few information we have in the comic verse is the short story Holy Night. And for that, Dysonito would have to be a single person. I don't think you could do Holy Night with Sharon around because it's somewhat a romantic love story, right? And that wouldn't work out well if Dysonito was married. So that's one possibility. Another one would be, maybe a little bit of a more informational story with regards to Nova. And again, this is, for some people, they may say they don't want, Nova shouldn't be revealed that early. Other people may say Nova's too important, you shouldn't put it into the prequel, which again, only a little bit of number of people will see. But yeah, one of the questions that came out, which even if you're a manga reader will come out, how is Nova different in the cinematic universe to the Nova in the comic verse? From the Iron City novels and from the main novel, we already know that Nova is very much different. As we saw in the movie, he belongs up in Zawa. And I'll leave it just as that to avoid spoilers for people who haven't read the novel. But that's another possibility that could go. The other is, of course, Alita as a berserker in Mars, in the war, showing what sort of person she was pre-discovery in the junkyard. So 300 years ago. So by doing that, you can distance yourself from what's going on around the story. It would end up being in Mars, definitely. But you get a lot more world building in terms of a character building rather than a world building. You learn more about Alita. You learn more about what Alita was like prior to her being discovered in the junkyard. Now this will be interesting because of the fact that if they are faithful to the source material, Alita is a very different person prior to being discovered in the Junkyard. Aside from her name, being different, her personality is different because she is a cold-blooded mercenary. And she portrays herself as being an extremely cold-blooded mercenary. And it might be good because of the fact that it will set up a world that is very action-packed, that is probably very sinister, very controversial. All those things can be created. And to some extent, it won't affect the cinematic universe because anything that's created, even if it conflicts with the source material, sure, why, what would be the big deal because of the fact that all of that will get destroyed during the fall and there is no connection to it. Everything that happens after that we see in the original series, in Last Order, and in Mars Chronicle, has no relations to individual small missions that Alita may have done while she was a berserker. So with that, the writers get somewhat a free rein so long as they keep the whole understanding of the world similar to what you saw in the source material and what you saw in the novels. That, a small spoiler, that the fall was a resource-based war, right? And so it should be that whatever missions that come out are based upon what goes on there. So far from what we saw in the small video clip, The Fall, that was a bonus material to the DVDs, we know that there was a strong conflict between Earth and Mars, in which case one possibility for a prequel is that Mars is the good guy, Earth is the bad guy, and you do the entire series that way. That would be kind of cool. I don't mind those twists in the plot where, in the movie we see it from the Earth's perspective, but in the prequel we see it from the Mars perspective. It may be distant, but it may still be close enough that you're still dealing with the same character, you're still dealing with the same story, and it's right near what happens at the fall. But I hope the series ends without showing anything of what happens in the fall. That will be revealed by the movie series. And I think if Disney does it that way, that will be pretty good. You still can write a very elaborate story without having to affect the conflicting nature to the source material, because the source material doesn't really go into that yet. And this will be the difficult part because of the fact that whatever Yukito Kishiro continues to write in Mars Chronicle may eventually conflict with that. But there's only so much that you can do. Maybe they should consult with Yukito Kishiro. My feeling is they absolutely should. And whatever stories are written gets his blessing with regards to that. And after that, either they have to conform with his perspective or he somewhat conforms with them, because either way they can continue to write whatever happened in the situation in Mars in a way that will make sure that neither side conflicts with each other. That's quality writing, both from the mangaka's side and from the studio's side. I hope they go to that level and they don't just run off and write whatever they want and turn it into another Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica or something like that. You have Alita, and then you have an android, female android like Data, and then you have Alita's family, who were very nice and whatever. And no, I don't want it that way. Whatever comes up, it should be at least independent enough. If there is going to be a potential conflict between what was Alita's family in the cinematic universe versus what was Alita's family in the comic verse, then don't even go there. Just write about Alita in the military. You don't even have to talk about what her, origins were as a family. You just have to write about what she was in the military. There, it's to some extent it's okay because of the fact that URM, the United Republic of Mars, doesn't come out in the main story, which means that even if whatever comes out is shown and may conflict with the main story, source material of the comic, well, it's a different universe. She's a Ern Berserker in the cinematic universe, not a Grunthal mercenary, right? She still learns Panzerkunst, but the type of Panzerkunst that comes out in the cinematic universe may be different from what comes out in the comic verse. I'm a little bit hesitant to do that because of the fact that after a while it just gets to be too distant, right? You could just start doing everything different and say, well, it's a different universe. But eventually, why even bother calling it Panzerkunst if it doesn't have the characteristics of Panzerkunst? So they should have maybe a slightly different history, but the overall look and feel of Panzerkunst should be the same. So far, they've done it well in the cinematic universe, and they better do that part well. If they show bad choreography fighting in the prequel series, I'll get really upset. That's one of the key foundations of the comic and of the franchise. Another possibility, and here's one that might be interesting, and this isn't the prequel, but if they really want to do, they could talk about Alita in the motorball world, right? And do that entire Joshigan thing in the series. It isn't a prequel, but it is something that happens right after. We know that in the second, if there is a sequel in the second movie, they're probably not going to have enough time to dwell upon Motorball. In which case, maybe they could have an entire story about Motorball in the series. As for the Iron City one, I will be all for it. The only difficulty I will have is the cast, right? If you're going to go with things that happen right before Alita is discovered in the Junkyard, that prequel series is going to have to hire some very, very expensive people to star in it. People like Mahershala Ali as Vector, and all the other people that came out. Rosa Salazar will probably be very happy to do Alita again, but then Alita isn't actually coming out, so that one cast that wouldn't be needed is Rosa Salazar, right? Everybody else may come out, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's a good idea. That may blow up the budget so high that it will be very difficult to do. If you brought in other actors in place of the ones that we saw in the cinematic universe, I always have a difficulty with that because usually there's just never a perfect match between who you already saw in the movies versus who you see as the same characters in the series. And so if that's the case, and if they're going to do Iron City, they're going to have to do Iron City with a completely different cast than what you did. And if that happens, then as much as it is Iron City, I'm not sure how much of it will really be a Battle Angel Alita series. I would lose a little bit of interest if not a single person in that series has anything to do with the comic verse or the cinematic universe. Well, maybe not. The one possibility could be a story about the, the Hunter Warriors. Maybe they could do an episode about McTeague. Maybe they could do an episode about Screwhead. Maybe they could do an episode about, what was that guy's name? Yeah, the White Hot Palms expert. I forgot what his name was. But anyway, maybe they could do, a series about all these different Hunter Warriors and how the world revolved around them. Maybe they could do an episode with regards to Destinova and the people around him. What is he doing up there? And how does it relate to it without really giving a tremendous amount of clues about that? There may be hints, right? Like they did in the novel, the Alita Battle Angel official cinematic novel. And I will say a little spoiler warning. There is a spoiler in that novel to the entire universe that wasn't shown in the movie. I will mention it here, so you might want to turn it off at this point. There was a point in the novel where at the point where Hugo was dying, he looks up and says a very abstract thing to Alita, and Alita's like, what are you talking about? You're dying. What are you talking about? And what he talks about is, if I look at the sky like I do, there seems to be one star up there that never changes position. It's always in the same place. And why I thought about it for a long time and why I mentioned it now is I finally get it. I get what that is. It's not a star. It's some sort of system, a station up there that's geosynchronously in place with Earth. And for the comic readers, you know what I'm talking about, right? What is big up there that's connected to Earth? And for the moviegoers, yeah, that's one of the great things to talk about. So, the book hinted to a few things without revealing a tremendous amount. And the series may hint to a few things, right? What is the School of Panzerkunst? What was the development of the hunter-warrior history? That's something that they have free reign on because, the comic verse doesn't go seriously into that, right? How was the hunter-warrior unit created? All of that can be brought out to create a slightly more colorful world than what we already see in the cinematic universe. And if that's the case, I think that will be fine. If we go back to the Star Wars series, a lot of people have used The Mandalorian as the example. If they did something like The Mandalorian did with Star Wars to what you see in Alita Battle Angel, that would be great. The difference, I will say, is The Mandalorian was created after the entire universe was created, right? Hundreds of novels have already come out. The entire tri-trilogy of the movie has already come out. Games have already come out, and people understood to death what the Star Wars universe was like. So when you create The Mandalorian, it fits right in. We're still at the first movie of the Battle Angel Alita, or Alita Battle Angel. That would be like creating The Mandalorian right after Episode 4, the very first movie that came out, right? A New Hope. In which case you'll go, who the heck is the Mandalorian? Because he never came out in anything. The first time you ever see him is in Empire Strikes Back, which hasn't come out yet, right? If you show the Mandalorian at the first movie. So some of the ideas I think that are saying like this will be like the Mandalorian may not work because of the fact that the Alita world, the Alita universe has not been fleshed out yet. And so if there's anything, I would say instead of making something like The Mandalorian, go back to your roots. Go back to if you were the first movie in Star Wars, what was it about Star Wars that was interesting? Life about Obi-Wan Kenobi, or understanding of the Jedi Order, or understanding of the rebels, understanding of the Empire. Those are the things that people really didn't understand yet back then because the only thing they had was the very first movie. If that's the case, then I think they should think about it that way with the Alita Battle Angel. And if that's the case, then there are a limited number of things. Sure, the comic goes through a tremendous amount of things, but there's certain things in the comic that I don't think should be introduced at this time. And I'll say a few names which for the comic people make sense, but for people who only watch the movie, it won't matter. It's just a name. Whether it won't spoil you because you don't even know who this person is, right? Like Zex. Bringing out Zex now will make absolutely no sense whatsoever. So those are the types of things that come out that I would say is not a good idea. Operation Malwolf may not be a good idea to bring out. Certain things with our understanding of what's going on in the universe that we know of from the comic verse should not be brought out yet, right? And that may even go to certain parts of understanding Destinova. Although, if they can clear out a little bit of what is the difference between the cinematic Destinova and the comic Destinova, I think even the comic readers would appreciate that. Anyway, that's about it for me rambling on with regards to this. I have a lot of other things to say, but I'm already spending way too much time on this. So what do you think? What do you think will make a good series based upon two criteria? One, it'll satisfy you as a fan of the movie, as a fan of the comic. And two, it'll satisfy the typical general audience that have only seen the movie and know of that as the only information source for the franchise so far. What will make both of these groups happy so that the series will then get a good reputation, and that will positively impact the possibilities for a sequel. Anyway, that's about it. Thank you very much for listening. I'll continue on with more standard Battle Angel Alita videos in the future. I hope you join me at that time. And until then, happy speculating, happy discussing, and as always, have a nice day, everyone.